Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we're talking about carv-up.
Is that how it's pronounced? I
Well,
thought it
I
was
don't know. I think
carv-up.
we need to come to a certain understanding before we go any further. There it is.
Carv-up.
That's
That's what
the
it should be. It's
you
a
know that's
knife game.
that's one of the most famous knives in podcasting right there.
This one is? What
Yeah,
about my
because
switchblade?
you pull it out. Well, I thought you just had the comb. I didn't realize you had the real
No.
thing.
No, that's a real one, man. I'll cut you. I'll carve
Okay.
you up, brother.
Yeah. So are we going to call it carv-up or are we going to
No.
call it carv-up?
It's funny because I've seen it spelled differently in different places.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think the box, I've seen some people have a car-vup.
Yeah.
Okay. And then some
Done.
people just have carv-up, most places actually.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then sometimes they capitalize the V and sometimes they don't.
Right.
So I'm just going to go with carv-up until
Okay.
I'm told otherwise.
All right. I will match you.
It's
And
too hard to pronounce it the way you were doing it. That's verbal gymnastics.
I didn't know if it was a karatika situation.
Would you stop with that?
We got a couple things in the mail, Aaron. This first thing
yeah.
came to us from the lovely land of Finland. This is O'Brien's Retro and Vintage. He sends us a Christmas card every year, and this is the one that we received. I think we got it in February, so it was sort of late to arrive. You know how the mail is these days. Sorry, I said Finland, but this is totally Norway. Sorry, I've just offended all the Scandinavians. So
I'm so happy to see that O'Brien's and his gang, his store, his enterprise have been like a constant companion for the Amigos.
yes,
Since our very beginnings,
yes,
the rough beginnings. And O'Brien's has always been super nice to us. Sent us some games, sent us some videos. Always sent us card, and we appreciate it. And if you're in Norway, for the love of God, please head over to O'Brien's. Is it a real store?
it's a real store. It's a real store. O'Brien's Retro and Vintage.
Go over there. Show him some love. Just walk in and just say, "Are you O'Brien?" When he says, "Yeah," just give him a big hug and say, "This is from the Amigos," and then buy a bunch of his crap.
Bam. The next thing that we have is, I want to be careful to cover the return address here, but I want to show you these stamps. Look at those stamps. Those are the most colorful stamps. They come for
What's going on those stamps, Bo?
This is a festival celebration. You have a king that's dancing around. You've got the court jester, bespeckled in blue and yellow. And then you have it looks like a young girl playing a marching bass drum. And it says this is a 500 Yara Wasinger Carnival. So it's celebrating the world famous Yara Wasinger Carnival.
Man, they got some great cotton candy and some of those funnel cakes. That carnival, they've been around for 500 years.
500 years. They've had time to perfect it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to open this up because I've not yet opened it up. Inside, what do we have? We have several things. So I will sort of release them.
Package day. This is great.
Yeah.
We haven't done that for a while.
First thing, this is a magazine called Amiga Germany. Amiga Germany. So check that out. It's a very cool. This is a digest size, which is my preferred size. For magazines. And the Amiga scene in Germany is almost a scene unto itself, as we know. Their events are the biggest events in the world. They have the most people involved, and so it's cool to kind of get a glimpse inside and see what's going on. Look at there's Lost Patrol. We did that game. We've done a lot of these games. That's sort of.
I'm gonna be horking that magazine when I come over to your house.
It's very cool. Yeah, you check it out tomorrow when you're over here.
That's awesome.
And Aaron,
I wish it was tomorrow, Saturday, but
oh yeah, you're right, Saturday. And get ready for the main event here.
That wasn't the main event.
We've talked about it for years, and now we get to hold it in our hands. A real life copy of Amiga Joker.
Oh man, and it's already been ripped asunder.
That's right. Somebody just got mad. Read one of the reviews. I was like, oh. And
you're right. I have never actually looked through an Amiga Joker. So how neat.
This is from February 1993, so right in the heart of
what did they hate in that issue?
Exactly. They do review Nick Faldo's golf.
Oh, we liked that, didn't we?
That's true. Turrican 3, sort of a stinker. Chaos Engine and Street Fighter 2. So you get a little bit of everything in here.
Oh boy, I can't wait to look through that too.
And this is Oh, it gets a little spicy in some of these reviews too. There is
Hey, that's the way they do it.
there is definitely a an unclothed female girl in these ads. You know, Germany, it's a different world over there than here in the United States.
It's a sexy world
It's a sexy,
with big
sexy
beers and
world. That's right.
chocolate and
Uh-huh.
snow. Who now?
Yeah.
Who sent this stuff over, Bo? Can you say again?
This is Gribaldi is his name.
Thank you,
And
sir.
he is one of the few, the proud German patrons of our show. We appreciate him and everything that he's done for us. And by all the things he's done for us, I mean give us money and send us magazines.
Hey,
So
hold on a
thank you,
second now. I
Grimaldi.
want to say, yeah, thank you so much. And I know we've got some friends that listen in Germany. So, guten Tag. Thank you for checking us out, and we appreciate it. And we appreciate those very lovely gifts. That's very nice.
I'm surprised you kind of pulled out some continental knowledge there. I love
A lot
it.
of people don't realize that I'm so smart because I look so dumb. You know,
I've heard that
it's
they're
actually a
sort of,
cunning plan.
yeah, it's like a seesaw.
Yeah, that's it. You got it, boy. You nailed me good, Boat. So we seesaw our way into this game.
Let's do it, man.
So I had to let that one simmer for a minute before it really got funky. Just sort of a lot of drums, a lot of, but there's some good tunes in the old carv-up, I think. So I'm gonna give the devil its due. Bo, now I know for a fact that this one is one you have touched on in the
Yes.
past, correct?
Yeah, I have played this one before. I'm sure I've played it on a stream because people always suggest it to me when I tell them how much I love City Connection.
You know, we should probably let's before we dig into this, and since you just cited it there, let's talk a little bit, if you'll indulge, about City Connection, because this is one of your favorite games
It
from the
is.
arcade,
Mhm.
Boat. So let's talk about it a little bit, because a lot of people will tell you that carv-up is an homage, or a just a straight up ripoff of City Connection. City Connection arcade game. One of the most famous games that Jalico made. Jalico, of course, pretty big deal, I would say, Boat, as a developer in Japan.
Absolutely.
So City Connection was in the arcades, and I didn't realize this is the July of '85, Boat. Did you know it came out in '85?
I did. I did know that only because I'm a big fan of City Connection. But it
So
looks, I mean, it kind of looks better than a game from '85, don't you think?
That looks pretty good. Now, let me ask you, did you play this? Did you ever play this in the arcade?
The only time I ever played it was at the good old Galloping Ghost.
Man, we got a lot of mileage out of that couple hours, didn't
Yeah.
we?
I also lost a lot of weight through sweat.
Yeah, no kidding. That place is like a really entertaining electric sauna. When City Connection came out, it did get supports to the NES, where I'd wager you played the majority of spent your time with it.
Absolutely.
And
I got
also-
this. This was one of the games that I got in a lot. It was either on eBay or maybe at a pawn shop or something.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, City Connection, what's this? And then I started playing. I was like, oh, it's great. So anyway.
Yeah. It's also came out, Boat, on the MSX and the Specky.
Oh, okay.
Did you know that?
I did not know that. I'll have to
And-
check
and
out the Spectrum version.
And we're also on mobile phones. Apparently, it also had a Windows release. I don't know how that worked. Probably part of a compilation.
Mhm.
So, City Connection has you driving you take the role of someone called Clarice, a blue-haired teenager in an orange Honda City hatchback, as it travels around the world in the quest to find Clarice, the perfect man. That's what Wiki. Does that mesh with what you've heard about this?
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
So,
Because there are cutscenes, and I think there are cutscenes in the arcade version, but
Yeah.
in the NES version there are definitely cutscenes. And I thought in the cutscenes you play a blue-haired man that smokes cigarettes. So
well, I
I
can't
don't get
speak
it.
on the NES version, but the arcade
Maybe they
version,
changed it. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they changed it for the NES release, just because like dudes that were playing the NES back in the day didn't want to play no chick. You know, this
You
was
don't wanna
in
fight- you
the
don't think-
enlightened times.
You don't think young boys don't want to travel around in a Honda hatchback as a woman looking for the perfect man? You don't think that's an appealing selling point?
You know, I'm just going to go on a limb and say no.
So Clarice and her car, they have to run across all the platforms, and as you go across the platform, it changes color basically.
Yeah.
And when you've recolored all the platforms, the level ends. And this reminds me of, say, something like there have been a few of these games where, like, in the background, there's different cityscapes. You might be in Australia. You might be in London, or whatever. There's a bunch of different stages. And, of course, there are people all after you the whole time. And this was, I didn't realize this game was so popular, if I'm honest. It was a pretty popular game. And it's Clarice is actually a pretty popular character because she's credited as being among the first female protagonists of a console game.
Oh,
So,
absolutely,
so there you
absolutely.
go. She's also made appearances in another game on the PlayStation called Gun Bear. And also, did you know this, Bo? This is something I was eager to mention to you. Jalico released a sequel to this called City Connection Rocket. Did you ever play that?
I have never heard of that. I want to
So this
seek
is a
that
reason
out.
for that. It's on the
Okay.
Japanese mobile phones, but hold on now, don't worry. It was also bundled in a City Connection DX release in 2015 on the PlayStation Vita. So
Wow.
somewhere, if you look around, because you can emulate the Vita,
Yeah.
you can be tonight. You can be playing City Connection Rocket in your own home. So
That is
wouldn't be nice?
unbelievable. I will check that out for sure. Thank you, man.
And then one last little tidbit. So Jalico's, of course, their game assets and everything got bought. And the
Mhm.
company that bought them, you know the name of the company? City
No.
Connection. They named
Are
their company after this game.
Wow. So City
So-
Connection, I mean, I'm sort of with you. I always think about City Connection as being not really a hidden gem, but definitely not among the top tier, most famous arcade games of all time. But if the company that bought Jalico renamed themselves City Connection, I could be wrong about
There
that.
you go. So now that we've pumped up the arcade version, let's have a quick rundown on the Amiga side of this. Now, of course, this is not a sequel or a port, but this is in the spirit of that sort of thing. That's Carv-up, released in 91. I read in a magazine article with where they interviewed some of the guys that the production of this game started in May of 1990. And I
Okay.
believe this released in towards the end of 91. So it was in production that long. But this is published by Core Design, Bo, your favorites.
They are
Uh,
they are the most hit and miss of all the hit and miss designers.
We have looked at, it seems like they just keep pumping out games. Like even
Mhm.
today, I think they're still making them. They amongst the things we've looked at over the years was Banshee, Bub and Sticks, Universe, Dark Mirror, Heimdall, Skeleton Crew, and Wolf Child. These are all games from Core Design. Of course, they went on to do Tomb Raider, a bunch of other stuff. The coder on this was named Rob Toon. Who
Okay.
he was amongst his works were Rick Dangerous, Thunderhawk, and Frenetic. The graphics by Terry Lloyd. Get this, Terry Lloyd's got some splaining to do with some of these games. Terry Lloyd did the graphics for TV Sports Boxing, and then the Dizzy games, and then one of our least favorite games ever, Action Fighter, which
Oh
we
my
both
gosh,
hated.
yeah.
So that was one of his, but he also worked on Rick Dangerous. I'll give him a pass on that. And then lastly, the music was done by Matthew Simmons, who has done some good work over the years, including the Chuck Rock theme, Agony, a bunch of the Dizzy games, Leander, Micro Machines, and UFO, which is a very popular game from back in the day. This is ECS OCS one disc, and this retailed boat in the stores back when it was first released for £24, 99p.
So full price game. Keep that in mind as we're talking about it.
Full price game. So, Boat, I've been jabbering on for a while. Why don't you grab people by the hand and explain Carv-up to them?
Okay. So Carv-up is a game where you play as an animated car. If you've ever seen the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit, it is the car from that movie. Actually,
It does look just like it.
I think the car has a name, but I can't recall
Arnie.
because Arnie. Okay, so you play as Arnie the car, and you're
He should have been
tasked.
Carney.
That would have been better. Would have been better. You were tasked with essentially doing the same thing that you do in City Connection. You have a series of platforms on an infinitely looping, scrolling stage, and your job is to drive over the platforms and change them in some way, to alter them in some way. Some stages you're filling in dots, other stages you're changing the color of the platforms. The other stages you are jumping up on clouds and causing weird vampire tooths to fall out of them.
Yeah.
But in every stage the goal is the same. In your way are your various hazards. There are other vehicles that are trying to stop you. You have various things that fly through the air that get in your way. And then if you take too long, there is, I believe they call him a real nutter in the manual. He is a demon. There's a demon, and he will appear much like the demon in Ghouls and Ghosts. He looks very similar, and he will menace you until you either complete the level or die by
He
his
does
hand.
menace you. That's exactly the way he does. He just sort of annoys you by hanging around until he kills you.
Yeah, yeah. And that you progress through levels. I believe there are four boards on each level, and there are 8 levels total. So it's amazing after Super Mario Brothers how many games took that same tack. And when you reach the end of a level, you get some score, and you move on to the next level. You can spell bonus. You can spell extra. And so this is straight out of the Universal Playbook, which is nice. I always like games where you spell things. There are pickups that either appear as you run over the ground, or they will sometimes just fall directly out of the sky. And so you're always doing various things. And when you reach the end of a level, you rescue a different animal. And again, I did read the manual, but it was so inconsequential that I immediately forgot it, which is odd for me because normally I remember at least a little bit of the story from the manual, but in this one I must have just totally glossed over it. But I do remember the cutscenes that appear at the end of every level, which show you freeing an animal from either a cage or some other implement, and the animal thanking you, and you move on. So that is the way that carv-up goes.
The man, I did read the story of it in this, and it is so. I mean, effectively, this is a great happy land, but then the bad guy decides he wants to be mean and he wants to screw up the land, and so he captures these animals. That's the plot. Like you,
Okay.
that's I mean that's I mean I'm not glossing it over. That's pretty much the plot of this game. So it wasn't a whole lot of plot involved in this. Now, we should mention this got a release on the ST and the Amiga. In fact, they came out the same month. And I know that they did a lot of the graphical assets on the ST, believe it or not. But the ST did not get any of the parallax scrolling that the Amiga did. So the Amiga, they're extremely comparable in terms of the gameplay. But graphically, the Amiga one's a little bit better. I think the Amiga's got a little bit better music as well, but that may be a matter of opinion. Bo, when this comes up and you start playing it, how did you feel about the controls in this? The controls are interesting in that you have 2 different sorts of jumps, and that's not counting a down jump, I guess. How did you cope with the controls, especially since you're playing so much City Connection?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think people that have played a lot of City Connection will experience a lot more frustration with this game because it's so similar in so many ways, but maddeningly different in other ways. The biggest difference is that in City Connection, when you reach the end of a ledge, you will do what cars do. You will careen off the ledge unless you jump. The manual explains that Arnie, after watching a Alfred Hitchcock video, has developed a fear of heights, and so his vertigo prevents him from just careening off the edge. So when he reaches the edge of a platform, he will just circle around. He will reverse or direction and just go the opposite way. So that's the biggest thing that I had to contend with. The jumping mechanism is also different. In City Connection, you have basically one level of jump. There is no variable height jump in City Connection. So you just kind of have to time your endings from where you jump from one platform to another to successfully be able to jump onto multiple platforms at once. In this game, you actually are gifted with a bunch of different jumps. There's a long jump, a short jump, a down jump. And so theoretically, this would give you more control over your car. And so coming to terms with that was also kind of a challenge, especially I had to go back and look at the manual again to figure out what exactly the down jump was, because the down jump is actually very useful. There's lots of opportunities in this game because of the way that one of the differences between this and City Connection is the platforms are often a lot more closely spaced in carv-up. And
Yeah.
so you're going to be hitting the top of other platforms as you jump a lot more often than in City Connection. And so that down jump is really necessary. That tiny jump is necessary to be able to traverse the platforms when you have such limited vertical space to deal with.
And it's funny, I didn't know about the down jump. Because it's funny, I looked at the docs, but I didn't look this. Like it says down, pull down, down jump. I was like, I didn't pay attention to it. So when I discovered it, I'm like, oh, I could have used this. That's for sure. I found the jumping in this. It's just to throw my nickels worth in. I've never been any good at City Connection. It's not a game I enjoy. And so when this came up, I'm like, oh boy. But I will say I did enjoy this more than City Connection, probably for the reasons that it was hard for you to get used to it. Where the car automatically turns around. It does give you the time, if you're going back and forth on the platform, to kind of set up your jumps if you're not under duress, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's not as, like, now I will say there is a rhythm you get into in City Connection that you never get in on this.
No.
City Connection's like, if you like watching the Duke boys jump a river and then like hit a curve and everything looks smooth, this is not the game for you, because this is a lot of stopping and not stopping and starting, but reversing as you try to, and also cornering, where since your car turns on the corner, it's hard to line up those long distance jumps where you're trying to jump off right near the end, because if you wait a split second too long, he just turns around.
Exactly.
I don't know if that happened to you.
Absolutely, all the time.
There were plenty of platforms, like Bo said. There's a long jump, and then there's like a high jump, and there are plenty of platforms. In fact, I think on the third level was the first one I hit, where I had trouble getting to a certain place. I couldn't get up there, and it was hard. Something else I had trouble with was like when I was trying to jump up onto a ledge, and I would accidentally double jump. I didn't jump over the ledge. And I don't know how I was even doing that. I don't want to do it. So that was sort of infuriating. So there were some times where the controls got in my way. But for the most part, I thought the controls were pretty tight. And that was not by no means was that my biggest gripe with the game. But there were some issues for sure. Now, I wanted to get your input on this, boat. Because this is another place where this goes wildly veers away from City Connection. This game has buckets and Amiga-sized buckets of pickups in it. I mean, tons of crap. You're getting them all the time. What were your thoughts on all these crazy drops in this game? And they're just hordes of them.
I was confused by it, to be honest with you. This is a lot like the pickups in Rainbow Islands, where whenever you traverse a section of land, they will just kind of grow from the ground. But the difference is that in Rainbow Islands, there's ways that you can multiply those points, and there's strategies that you can use to make that, to show off the skill of your play. In this game, there's none of that. In this game, things just pop up out of the ground, and you can choose to run over them or not. And I mean, if you're going to point press, then you're just going to, it's sort of a thing of like, how long do I want to spend on this level until, man, I wish I could remember the demon's name. It's like Terry or something like that, but it's not a very demonish name.
You're pretty boned when he comes out.
Yeah. And so then you've also got the blocks that fall from the ceiling,
the
that
turbo
are
demon. It says here.
Okay, the turbo demon. Oh yeah, and when he comes out, you get a pretty bad voice sample. It's like, turbo, but it's spelled OHOH. And I read a lot of British literature, and I'm pretty sure that they spell uh-oh the same way that we do, and they just made a pretty big mistake by calling it oh when Terry comes out. That bugged me. But anyway, you've got letters that fall from the ceiling. And you also have weapons that fall from the ceiling. The letters that fall from the ceiling aren't affected by the platforms, but the weapons are. So the weapons will kind of ride along the platforms and give you an opportunity to pick them up. The biggest single differentiator between this game and City Connection is the way that the weapons work. So there are weapons in this game, most of which I found to be utterly useless, but they're there. There is a an oil slick that you can lay down. There is a silver bumper that allows you to take more hits, and then there's also a projectile weapon. There's several others too.
There's so many. I'm
There's
looking
a
at a list here.
there's a
There's
lot.
like, if you think about this for a minute, okay? Now, keep in mind, you're already seeing the letters for bonus and extra. So it's
Hmm.
like Mr. Duel and steroids, okay?
Right.
Then you've got ejector seat, spare tires, oil can, gun, big fender, mortar, depth charge, backfire, steam, smoke bomb, snowflake, speed turn, and alien metamorphosis. Plus, that's not counting the fruit that comes down that or comes around randomly and appears. And then also not counting the variety of enemies. This is all on the screen at any given moment. It's insane. And I don't know how you could look at these weapons. First of all, I don't know how you can see what the weapons are. I couldn't see. And
Hmm.
then I don't know what you could do to want or not want any of the drops. Because
Yeah.
often they drop on you while you're at the top of the screen. You just get them.
Well, I think the mindset behind this is that at the core, at its core, this is a very simple game, and they're like, what can we do to spice things up? And so they're like, let's just add a whole crap ton of weapons. Let's add a whole crap ton of letters to collect.
Yeah.
And that does, I will admit, it does give the game some longevity. Unfortunately, I would rather have a game like City Connection that gives you that more flowing sense of movement than this stop and go, constantly turning type thing, and have the pickups. But we're dealing with this game as it is. I don't think that it's very fair to compare it to City Connection because it's not a City Connection port.
Right.
It borrows the main conceit of City Connection, but it's a totally different game. So I'm not going to criticize it. The main criticism that I have of this game is the way that the weapons are implemented. In this game, you are required to have a joystick that has a button on it, like a thumb button, and then you've got to keep your hand on the keyboard. They do have an option for something called auto weapon, which just activates your weapon whenever you get it. That's no good. That's no good. Especially when you get better at the game, you're going to want to save your weapon until you need it, obviously. And one of the problems is also that sometimes you will pick up a weapon without meaning to because they will drop, like you said, from the ceiling when you're at the top of the screen and you have no option of whether to pick it up or not. Um, I do think that the variety of weapons is nice. It's like the variety of weapons in Worms. Some of them are nearly useless, some of them are fun, some of them are cool. So I don't have a problem with that. I would like to see them not drop from the screen. I think giving the player more agency in what weapon he wants to have or she wants to have at any one time is a good thing. And I wouldn't mind being able to collect more than one weapon and have some way to cycle through them. This is a game that moves slow enough where you can do that. Um, I really dislike games that depend on you having one hand on the joystick and one hand on the keyboard, because I play with a D-pad, and that's just not the way I play. But even if I played with a joystick, if I played with a 2600 stick, that wouldn't be the case either. You really, to play this game well, in my opinion, you have to have one of those button on top type sticks, and you're constantly manning that Z button, or the Z button stops you, so it is possible to grind to a dead stop by pressing the Z button and using the space bar to activate your weapon.
I always use the automatic thing because to me, and maybe this will explain. Maybe you got a lot farther than me. I never depended on the weapons to get very far because they were just like I said, they were so random, and I didn't know what they did, and I had the instructions on the other screen, and I couldn't see what they were doing. Every once in a while, I get one. I'm like, okay, I saw what it did, but I wasn't sure. I never used the joystick. I didn't use the sudden stop either. I just kept the ball rolling on the whole thing. I personally, I could have done without the weapons, or at the bare minimum, like you said, have the way to get the weapons that don't involve them just falling on you. That way, and maybe not have as much stuff dropping. It was too much stuff going on in this game for me. I was trying to concentrate on actually completing the level. I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, the sound effects. It seems like they just made noises into the microphone and said, "Good enough." I guess they were trying to go for like a cartoon thing. But
Hmm.
newsflash: the people at Core Design are not Frank Welker. All right, they cannot pull it off. I mean, the sound effects in this are stupid. Now, I mean, you could say like, "Oh, they were going for stupid." Oh, mission accomplished. They suck. Sound effects suck. This is another game where you can't have sound effects and music at the same time, which is stupid. There is a way to turn music and sound effects on and off, toggle them. But we both hate that. The with the aside from the control niggles that I mentioned and the stupid sound effects and the amount of stuff falling on you, I also found some of the enemies to be highly irritating. I couldn't tell what killed some enemies and what didn't kill them. Sometimes
Hmm.
I could, and I guess it was probably what weapon I had. Sometimes I could fall on an enemy, sometimes I couldn't. Sometimes the enemies would just get near me and explode, sometimes they didn't. So I'm assuming it's just whatever weapon I had was activating.
Yeah, like
But
if
as
you
a
if you've got the silver bumper or whatever it's called, you can just mow things down.
Like, I would rather just not. I would rather either be able to jump on stuff all the time or never jump on stuff. That made it harder for me and someone who was new to the game.
Hmm.
With all that said, and oh yeah, one more thing: the bonus and the extra. Like, I would get bonus all the time, and when you get bonus, it completely stops the game, so the letters can go off like fireworks. This is not something the game needs
Yeah.
because it's not like in Mr. Do where like you do it every couple of levels. You're like, oh yeah, it's a small break. There's a little cutscene. In this, you'll spell bonus multiple times on the same screen. And you hardly ever spell extra. I didn't spell extra all that much. I spelled bonus tons. And for the longest time, I thought bonus gave me the extra man. So I kept wondering why I was running out of man. I had to look at it. I was like, oh, son of a gun. I'm getting screwed here. And if I'd paid attention when the bonus letters explode, you can see them adding the points to your total, which is nice. I will say this would be a fine high score game. You can have a good time. I think there's a lot to do, and you can't really you can point press, but you can't just sit there and milk the level because when the demon comes out, he's gonna hose you. You're gonna be
Yeah.
boned.
I do want to talk a little bit about the graphically what I like about this game and what I don't like.
Yeah, get into it.
Um, so graphically, the game is pretty. It's a pretty looking game. It is a step above with the use of color, an 8-bit game. Um, I think that there is a great variety of setting the level setting and the what you're actually running over to complete the levels. They really put in the time. I mean, you could have easily had a game like City Connection where you're essentially just you've got a different cityscape behind you, but you're essentially running over the same type of roads. But in this game, not only did they mix up the enemies on every stage, but they also mix up the settings. So like you've got a music stage where you're running over xylophones. You've got a like the one we're watching now. It's like a Fred Flintstone stage where you're running over rocks and there's dinosaur bones in a Flintstone house and stuff like that, and that's cool. You've got a stage where you're in a sort of like Tron-like place, and you're filling up when you run over something. It fills up like a red neon light. That's cool. Um, that kind of variety, I think, is good. Is very good. And the fact that like I was able to get to the second stage without really trying too hard, at least I got to see some more of the game other than the first level. So I call that a win. City Connection is not an easy game either, and so I don't have a problem with the challenge in this game. Um, I think that the issue comes where there is just you get to a certain level in the game, and there is so much stuff on the screen that you can just die. The deaths become very, very cheap because there's just so much, they're throwing so much at you at once. In City Connection, when you die at a higher level, it's your fault. I feel like when you die at a higher level in this game, it is the game being too unfair. So I think graphically this game is wondrous. I wish that like all Amiga games put this much thought into their different sorts of theming levels. But I think that the difficulty curve it doesn't just spike, it just goes into unfair territory. One
Yeah.
more thing I want to talk
Oh yeah.
about too is the design of Arnie. So Arnie, if you recall from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, is kind of a wacky, cool looking dude, and he's always happy. Well, in this game, Arnie spends a great part of the game unhappy and looking like he's constipated. Roll back the video to the very beginning to where we can see the title screen, if you would, Aaron.
Yes, sir. Keep
When
going.
you
I'll do it.
when you do that, you can see that Arnie, not only does he not look happy, he looks frightened, afraid, and not wanting to be there. Okay. I don't care what kind of dangers are in store for Arnie. I want Arnie to take them on with confidence and a good attitude. And he has neither one of those things. Okay.
Clearly, Arnie's seen other Amiga games, and he's like, "Oh my God, no! These things are impossible. I'm screwed."
And when you reach the game over screen, this is kind of cool. I don't mind the fact that Arnie looks down in the dumps. Then he can wear that face as he's kind of puttering back to his home. He drops car parts as he makes his way back to his home. I think the game over screen is kind of clever. I don't mind him looking sad there, but at the very first screen of the game and on the box, having him look that way just makes me not want to play the game.
It looks like he's grabbing his car, going like, "Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
You mentioned that this had a few things in common with what was it, Rainbow Islands?
Mm-hmm.
That was actually one of the games that the guys that made this were inspired by, along with Rodland. I found an article that was a preview of this game in a magazine, and they actually talked to the guys that made the game. So I get just a little insight into how this game was developed. Boat. Originally, Arnie wasn't called Arnie. You know what his name was?
No.
Carl the car.
Okay.
Which that's not bad.
I actually kind of prefer that, to be honest with you.
The game was originally conceived to be not this sort of game, but they decided that it would be fun to have a cartoony platform game, and so they went to a different route with the car aesthetics. It was going to be like a regular car, and they went with they wanted to make it more fun.
Sure.
And then they wanted the guy that made it, Toon, explained that he wanted to make this game look like it came from a console and arcade.
Mm-hmm.
So he was trying to make a non-computer game, which I will say I think they did do a pretty good job
Yeah,
at that.
I agree.
And both, this is something I think you'll be particularly interested in, given your what you just said. Arnie was planning to have more facial expressions, but they ran out of memory. They ran into memory constraints, so they couldn't do the extra facial expression.
I see. Okay.
So that may be a little something there that you can at least say, hey, they knew what I was right, but they couldn't pull it off. So
yeah, that's fair.
Which fair enough there. When you play this along with City Connection Boat, now that you've had you've probably played it more in the past week than you've ever played it. Like, so how does this land on you? Which is the champ of these two?
Oh, it's City Connection. There's no question.
Why do you prefer that?
Exactly. You have so much more control over your vehicle. It's City Connection is a car game, and we mention this in literally every car game that we ever play. What's the most important thing in a car game, Aaron?
Sense of speed.
Sense of speed. And in City Connection, you get that sense of speed as you're gliding over and you're watching your car gracefully leap from platform to platform as you shoot down the cop cars with your cans of oil. You really can get into a zen-like state where you are knocking. When you injure a car, it starts spinning around, and then you knock a bunch of them together. You're kind of in this flow state that just feels so good. And there is no zen state in carv-up. Carv-up is a game where you are constantly stopping and starting and stopping and starting. It just it's not as good of a game that's built on the same sort of concept.
I'm going, of course. Now I'm not a world class King Dong of City Connection, but I will say of the two, I definitely prefer carv-up. And it's probably for all the reasons you don't like it. This is like the gods of City Connection.
Yeah,
it's slower. It doesn't. If you're watching at home, you're thinking this doesn't look slower. But I mean, when you play it, it plays way. You've got more time to react than you do in City Connection, and it helps me to have more time to react. I mean, it's not a perfect game, not by any stretch of the imagination. I think they tried a little too hard and went a little overboard with some of it. But I still think it's a fun game.
Sure.
And for someone like myself, I have more success at it than I do at City Connection. But I think they're both. I'm really. It's funny in a lot of ways. I mean, yeah, obviously they're comparable, directly comparable, but they don't feel the same at all. Like
No.
so comparing them, as strange as this sounds, they don't compare all that well because they don't feel the same, despite the fact that they're basically the same sort of game. So, in my
Right.
opinion,
Right.
I was interested to see what the magazine side of this boat, and so I had a look just to get it started. The Lemon folks give this one a 6.89. That's probably a little low in my opinion. People over at Lore and Hall of Light are more forgiving, give this a 76%. The magazines they were sort of in the C range. Amiga Action had this as an 80. Amiga Format gave this an 83. Amiga Joker 82, which is probably the highest score they gave that year. Amiga Power 4 out of 5. CU Amiga 81. You can see a trend here. The One gave it a 71. Datsun Magazine gave it a 6 out of 10. Average magazine score, according to the Lemon people, 78%, which I think that's probably. I mean, really, I think this is. I mean, would you say this is a B title on the Amiga? Like,
I would say B minus. B
yeah,
minus.
I think this is a B title. I mean, it's playable as heck. It ain't
Yeah.
perfect. And again, there were some things the sound effects and some of the drops are ridiculous. But I think, and also they knew, I think, that maybe this might need some additional help. And so there are cheats to give you extra. Like I had a cheat to give me 9 men. There was a cheat to let me automatically go to that spiky cloud level to try that one out. And by the way, just for the record, I beat the first level of that my first try. So even the advanced levels are not like ultra punishing. If you get good at this game, I think you can do fairly well. But there were occasionally you would run up against some enemies where you were pretty much screwed.
Yeah.
And so that was another problem I had with it. But I mean, I wasn't using down for jump that much, and I think that would have helped me out quite a bit if I'd known more about that when the deal went down. Did we get any action on the Discord, Boater?
Yeah, we did. This was a very popular game, as always.
Really?
If you're a member of our Discord community by becoming a patron of Amigos, you can leave us a review for the game of the week, and we will read it on the air, as we will with our first contestant, Alien Breeder. He says, carv-up, a game that bravely asks, what if we took the least interesting parts of Pac-Man and Super Mario Brothers and mashed them together into an experience so aggressively average that core design can spend the next 30 years trying to bury it in one of Lara Croft's tombs? He goes on to talk about the background of carv-up, and he says, this is the kind of game that makes you wonder, why is this on a 16-bit system? The Amiga, capable of incredible sound, vibrant graphics, and deep gameplay, instead gets a game that looks like it took a wrong turn out of the NES era. The graphics, colorful, sure, but simplistic enough that you half expect them to find them printed on the side of a Happy Meal box. The music, well, no. It must be due to all those amazing Top Banana-esque sound effects. The gameplay, well, if you like doing the same thing over and over while questioning your life choices, you're in luck. And yet, despite its lackluster premise, carv-up does manage to be somewhat enjoyable in the way that watching paint dry can be somewhat enjoyable if you steer long enough and really commit to it. There's a strange hypnotic quality to driving over platforms and clearing levels, but will you ever come back to it? Not unless you're desperately searching for a new way to procrastinate. Final verdict, 680 top bananas out of 1,000. A game that's technically fun, but only in the way that eating plain toast is technically a meal.
Man, Alien Breeder's dropping the hammer.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. Articulate beatdown.
Bumface poo hands, right? I think my enjoyment of carv-up would vary depending on context. If I'd received this as a birthday gift or spent 25 pounds of my hard-earned money on it for my fancy new Amiga, I might be a bit miffed. On the other hand, if I found it on a cover disc, maybe a reader's game entry written in Amos, oh man, that's a double slam, Amos, I might be quite pleased with it. As an adult in 2024, I found it strangely compelling to play and spent a pleasant evening with it, with a simple gameplay placing little demands on my aging, tired adult brain. Pajako 6502 writes, I went from really liking this game to pretty much never wanting to play it again. After a few sessions of normal play, I decided to switch on the old infinite lives and cheat like a champ. No mere mortal could complete this game under normal circumstances. In the last few worlds, there is so much crap flying at you and coming at you off screen mid-jump, I blew through lives every couple of seconds. After reaching the most BS boss fight ever, I finally turned it off after about 20 minutes of trying to beat it, failing and having to start the whole process over again. Graphically, this game has every platform trope you can think of. Nope, wait, no sci-fi level. But everything else you can think of is in there. Beautifully drawn with some awesome but sadly too busy backgrounds making some enemies hard to spot. Audio is good, giving you music or sound effects, but sadly not both. There's some great humor and animations, and it should be awesome, but I think the developers were desperate to cram in as much as they could. And if ever a game needed 2-button support, it was this. Do not play with auto weapons, it sucks, especially in the boss fight. Overall, a fun game that gets too difficult for the sake of it and overstays its welcome. Worth playing for short bursts, but long term it gets irritating and fiddly. 6 out of 10. Jeff Hanna writes, Benny the Cab, who shot to fame and stardom in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, ended up as yet another chapter in the Hollywood story of using people and then forgetting about them. Benny's decline was swift and sudden. One day he was rubbing bumpers with the likes of Bob Hoskins and Jessica Rabbit. The next he was just another yellow cab on the tough-as-nails streets of Toontown. To make ends meet, Benny took on some advertising jobs, hawking reverse mortgages and diabetes test kits. The little money he made from these gigs went straight to booze. He loved the ethanol. Soon even the advertising gigs dried up. Benny made one last attempt at Hollywood, managing to get an audition for Kit in Knight Rider, but we all know how that ended up. Carv-up is a sad game, giving us a glimpse into Benny's life after he hit rock bottom and then sunk down on his broken suspension just to go a little lower. Benny, now going by Carl to help hide his shame, wanders around town aimlessly, avoiding the local gentry and filling in holes in steel I-beams. A sad, sad ending for a once great taxi cab.
Who wrote that?
Well, that was Jeff Hanna.
Holy smokes. That's 2 in a row for Jeff. He's out of his mind.
And finally, PKLX writes, simple yet surprisingly fun and addictive game. I didn't have high expectations because I disliked City Connection on the NES as a kid, but somehow this version works much better. Over the past week, I've started the game many times just to play a few quick rounds and try and beat my personal record, 7 out of 10. So thank you all so much. We love all the reviews. Please keep them coming.
Man, that was a series of burials that I have not seen for a long time, and the creative burials and wordy. They couldn't just bury it. They had to destroy the poor game. I thought it was better than that. I guess I'm the only one, Boat, because I thought it was okay.
PKLX was with you. He gave it a 7
Holy
out of 10.
smokes! Yeah, thank you. One week, one guy. So I guess the final verdict on this one is, I mean, I think it's a good, fun diversion.
Mm-hmm.
Get yourself 9 lives like a cat. It's an easy code. Type it in, and then just go to work. I'm much like yourself. I got to the second level, the second group of levels. You know, I also explored. So I mean, if I can get there eventually, it can't be that bad. You know, but again, mistakes were made. But I still think there's a lot of fun to be had. But I'll give you the final word on this one.
carv-up. If you don't like City Connection, you might like this.
Welcome to Retro Rewind. I'm your host, British Jones. Whether you're into the Amiga, Commodore 64, or Tiger floral print speed suits, Retro Rewind has all you need from the friendly hosers of the Great White North. Looking to upgrade your Amiga? Check out the Amiga OS 3.2.2 Kickstart ROM for just $18. Or maybe you need a C64 or C128 diagnostic harness. Grab one while they're hot. Don't miss our best sellers like the 1541 Transit Card for just $1, or the incredible Amiga Coin Cell Battery Adapter. Shop now at Retro Rewind Limited and bring your classic computers back to life. Retro Rewind Limited. Frank's the man.
Amiga News.
All right, Aaron, it's time for some Amiga news. We start things off with a story that you shared from my good buddy Rob Smith, Dev. He is the creator of the Amiga car wash, the Amiga disc car wash.
That guy.
This is that guy. This is that guy. So tell us about it, man.
Well, you know, it's just I like to mess around, see what's going on out there in Amiga land, and I saw this pop up. So There's a way you could get sound out of your video out of your Amiga on HDMI, but the sound is still coming out separately. It's sort of a hassle. I've had to cope with this myself with my free DOS gimmick, where you had to kind of rejoin the sound. It's a huge bit of bogery. And so your boy here, who clearly is a technological super genius, holds your hand and walks you trepidatiously into the realm of rejoining the audio with the video plug on the HDMI. If you've got this sort of setup, I think it would be in your best interest to give this a look and save you from having to go through a lot of pain. I thought it was pretty interesting. And this guy's got a lot of charisma, Boat, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Listen, Rob Smith, certified genius. His day job, in Vegas, how they have those huge projection screens that literally light up the side of casinos and laser light shows and stuff.
Yeah.
He programs all that stuff.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, he is. He knows what's up, and I'm not surprised that he's managed to figure out a way to make this happen. So
Very good.
very cool. It's always good to see people making improvements, even on something like the RGB to HDMI.
There you go, Boater.
Coming up next, Aaron, we have a story about a new AGA demo coming up. We talked about this on Ask the Amigos last night. That one of the best things about AGA is that people are finally learning how to use it to its fullest ability. And that includes making some really, really accurate arcade ports, including this AGA demo of Ghosts and Goblins. Now, Aaron, were you a fan of Ghosts and Goblins back in the day?
I love the music in this. I love the look of it, and I love the concept of it, but no. I sucked at this game. I remember when this came out in the arcade, and along with Ghouls and Ghosts, and I sucked at both of them because they're both triple hard, and only the hardest of the hardcore need apply to play these games, and I'm not on that level. And these games are, especially this one is one of those separate the men from the boys type games.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to be, when you see a sucker tearing this thing up, you should just back away slowly. He's all man, and I am not. I can't. Were you ever good at this?
Never once in my life was I good at Ghosts and Goblins. This is a hard game.
It's looking good though, isn't it, Bo?
Yeah, so this is Sky Zoo. Sky Zoo's the creator of this.
Yeah.
And of course, it is the ever-present, ever-amazing Scorpion engine from Erock, the only engine worth developing on. And you can download the demo right now at skyzoo73.itch.io.
I think there are multiple good engines, but yeah, this one is. There's a lot of good games that appear in this one.
Next up, Aaron, in our final Amiga news story of the week, we have one more new game, and this is called Faster, a super fast and silky smooth racing game that was originally made for the Atari STE, is now coming to the Amiga. So this was originally, I remember all the ST fans came out of the woodwork when it was when this was coming down the pike, talking about how their beloved system could do just as much of anything as the Amiga could do in terms of scrolling and stuff like that. Well, now it's time to see how the Amiga does with the same kind of code base. So it says the first in-development footage of a much-requested OCS-ECS conversion of the Atari STE game Faster. And there's no plans to talk about a release date just yet, but if you're looking for a proof of concept, check this out. This is another, I love these sort of outrunny, behind the back racing games. I want to see how good they can get. And so this is just another example.
I'll tell you, of course, I was all over Faster when it was in development and stuff. Dave Velociraptor was this guy's press agent.
Oh,
he
yeah.
was Twitter and crap left and right about this game and talking about it. But take out the Atari or Amiga, take out the fact that you're squeezing all this smooth speed out of this thing. The actual viewpoint of the car, the way it looks, like that's what I want. That's the one thing. Like, you look at all the space you can see in front of you. Look how far down this track you can see without your car's hiney getting in the way.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. And what I'd like to see, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't checked on the ST versions that came out. I know there's a game there, but I would like to see this engine developed into something more substantial. Once they've figured out how to get what they've got, I would like to see something done, maybe some sort of circuit or, different tracks, different stuff on, cool decorations, maybe even an outrunny type, like an homage, if you will. because they've got the right idea here with the. I mean, I like everything about this. And it's neat. This is one thing I didn't think we'd see ported to the Amiga, if I'm honest.
I'm very surprised. I figured that the developer would just keep this as a crown jewel of the ST and sort of keep the ST community in his back pocket forever, because this guy is a god on earth to people like Velociraptor.
Well, listen, I too am an ST and Amiga. I like them both. And the I will say, admittedly, the ST needed this more than the Amiga, but this is nice to see that these two old dogs can still do some new tricks. And the fact that what I really liked about your announcement that you had read is that this is an OCS ECS joint.
Yeah.
So
it's like something that runs on a stock 500. The ST needs its mega most awesomest design to emulate. Is basically.
Well, it's just a different computer, but I mean, I just think this is. I like the fact that he could have squeezed out tons of speed, made it super AGA with an 030. We just talked about that Outrun, the new Outrun coming out, which is exciting. Don't get me wrong, but I'm actually sort of excited about this just because anyone can run this. And if you could turn this into an actual factual game, I mean, I think it's glorious. It's glorious, and they've done a great job. So thumbs up to this. I think it's dandy. And the fact that it's on the Amiga and the ST, there should be some unity here. You know what I'm saying? And we can all agree that these sorts of releases are exactly what we want to keep our old computers nice and fresh.
That's going to do it for this week's Amiga News, Aaron. What are we playing next week on the show?
Let's find out, Boater. Oh, man. Boat, we're going back to the well. We've been to this well so many times over the years. It's public domania, Boat. Now, I got the name of the game that we're playing here. I looked it up. It's called... I've never heard of this one. It's called Dethel in Space.
All right.
Dethel. It's Dithell in Space. So that's the one we're going to be going for next week of Public Domania.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. All right. As always, if you like our show and you want to support us, go to patreon.com/Amigos podcast. Patrons get access to uncut bonus material, bonus episodes where we talk about all kinds of crazy nonsense. I don't even remember what we were talking about in the pre-show this week. Something weird. We were talking about flying. We're talking about Flack's trip to Europe, and how first class is the only way to fly. In addition, you also get access to the best Discord server on the internet and a cool little magnet and Christmas card at the end of the year. So patreon.com/Amigos podcast if you want to join up, and we will see you next week. And until then. Adios.
Amigos is made possible by contributions from listeners like you. Patreon supporters help choose the games we play, receive exclusive magnets, and get access to the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord server. Visit patreon.com/Amigos podcast if you'd like to support the show and join our community.